Hey everyone, and welcome to another explainer. Today, we're taking some pretty complex ideas and breaking them down into clear, actionable, visual insights. We are focusing on a tool that is absolutely transforming the data landscape right now, and that's Power BI. But look, we aren't just going to skim the surface with basic charts and graphs. No, our goal today is to completely unlock Power BI's true analytical potential by really understanding its underlying engine. So if you're an analyst or maybe an Excel user who has ever crashed a workbook with way too many VLOOKUPs, trust me, you are in exactly the right place.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the self-service BI revolution. Second, why learn to write DAX? Third, mastering filter propagation. Fourth, the magic of context transition. And finally, the path to DAX mastery.
I actually want to kick things off with this really bold quote from BI expert Matt Allington. He says, "Power BI is the best thing that has happened to business intelligence software since the introduction of Microsoft Excel." I love this because it perfectly validates the spreadsheet skills you probably already have, while totally highlighting the massive foundational leap forward that Power BI represents. It is not just a reporting tool, it's a complete paradigm shift for the everyday business user. All right, Section 1, the self-service BI revolution. Think of this as Chapter 1 of your new data journey with this transcript. To understand why this tool is such a big deal, we really have to look at the reporting demands in modern business. Oftentimes, the need for data insights just far exceeds what slow, expensive, and heavy enterprise BI projects can actually deliver on short notice. And that creates this massive need for powerful, self-service tools that empower you, the analyst, to get answers right now. Power BI is honestly brilliant because it handles the entire enterprise intelligence cycle across 4 distinct phases: data acquisition, data modeling, data visualization, and report distribution. You can pull the data in, model it, create stunning visuals, and then share it across your whole organization. But listen closely, because our focus today is entirely on phase 2. We're going to shine a spotlight specifically on the data modeling engine and the programming language behind it, which is known as DAX.
Let's move to Section 2, why learn to write DAX? Now, you might be wondering, why can't I just drag and drop fields in the interface and call it a day? Well, the truth is, merely clicking around Power BI's interface severely limits its value. If you don't write DAX, you're pretty much stuck with simplistic, basic calculations. DAX is that essential bridge that takes you from being a casual user to achieving true mastery. It's what allows you to ask incredibly complex questions of your data. Now, learning DAX is a totally different journey depending on your background. IT and SQL professionals, while they often rely on a deep technical database foundation to learn DAX, they already get relational models. But Excel business users, you have to rely on what Allington calls incremental learning. It's kind of like a new employee starting at a company. That new employee has to learn everyone's names from scratch, which is totally overwhelming at first. But the existing employees, they only have to learn one new name. As an Excel user learning DAX, you are that new employee. You've got to build up a completely new mass of knowledge before you can start incrementally adding to it. Which brings us to Section 3, mastering filter propagation. This is our first major technical hurdle. If you're a seasoned Excel user, I really need you to prepare to unlearn your traditional cell-based thinking. In Excel, a formula points to a specific cell, like A1 or B2. But in DAX, we deal with entire tables, relationships, and context. We absolutely have to master filter propagation. Let's define this concept nice and slow because it is an absolute must-understand foundational mechanic. Filter propagation is the mechanism in Power BI where filters applied to one table automatically flow through established relationships to filter related data tables. Let that sink in for a second. A filter on one table literally changes the physical data available in another table. This is the invisible engine driving all your dashboards. Now, what's really interesting here is this repeating total in the matrix. You're seeing the exact same number, 18,484, for accessories, bikes, clothing, and components. For someone used to standard Excel pivot tables, this honestly looks like a fundamentally broken formula. So we gotta ask the direct question. Why doesn't the total change based on the product category? Like, why are we seeing over 18,000 customers for every single row? To an Excel user, you totally expect to see only the count of customers who specifically bought bikes on the bikes row. But DAX operates differently. To really understand this, we have to learn how to read the initial filter out loud. Let's walk through it together. Step 1, we spot the visual filter. For the first row, the filter is product category equals accessories. Step 2, we check the table relationships in our data model. Step 3, we observe the filter propagation. What's actually happening here is that we're simply counting the number of customers in our master customers table. And guess what? The total number of customers in your master database doesn't magically change just because you're looking at the accessories category. Let's look under the hood at the relationships to see exactly why. A great rule of thumb is that filters flow downhill, they don't swim upstream. Because the relationship points from customers down to sales, the initial filter from products can never reach the customer's table. The customer's table remains completely unfiltered by that initial category filter, and that is exactly why the 18,484 total just repeated. It isn't broken at all, it's doing exactly what the data model tells it to do. Moving right along to section 4, the magic of context transition. Once you grasp how filters flow, you are fully ready for this next dense but highly rewarding mechanic. Please do not let the name intimidate you. Understanding this is the absolute key to unlocking true DAX superpowers. We are talking about context transition. And this brilliantly illustrates the concept. See, when we use a standard naked sum of sales, it just returns a repeating $29 million for every single row in our calculated column. It's completely ignoring the row it sits on. But by simply wrapping that exact same sum function inside the calculate function, we suddenly get perfectly accurate dynamic row-by-row totals. Calculate forces the engine to take the current row you're looking at and transition it into a filter. It magically filters the entire model for just that row's data before doing the math. That is context transition, and let me tell you, it is an absolute game changer. All right, section 5, the path to DAX mastery. As we transition into our final segment here, I really want to emphasize that wrapping your head around filter propagation and context transition takes time. Practicing these concepts and honestly anticipating the errors that are inevitably going to pop up is a completely natural part of becoming a supercharged data analyst. So the crucial point is learning how to write safe code. Think of the values function kind of like a high-wire act. It brilliantly returns a single row's value directly into your formula, but it is dangerous. If the visual context accidentally hands it multiple rows instead of one, your whole report breaks. To achieve real mastery, you always deploy safety net, like the has one value function. This catches errors before they happen by checking that you actually only have one value before it proceeds. Because if you don't use those safety checks, you are absolutely going to see the dreaded couldn't load the data for this visual error. Believe me, I have suffered through this error 100 times myself. This specific error pops up when a table of multiple values was supplied where only a single value was expected. It's basically a rite of passage for every DAX learner. Seeing these errors isn't a failure, though. It's just the system strictly enforcing the rules of the data model, and it underscores exactly why learning proper, structured DAX syntax matters way more than just guessing. To summarize our explainer today, mastering Power BI is so much more than just dragging fields onto a canvas. It requires dedicated practice. It requires you to unlearn your old cell-based spreadsheet habits. And it requires you to wholeheartedly embrace deep engine mechanics like filter propagation and context transition. But the reward? The reward is the ability to build robust, scalable, enterprise-grade, self-service business intelligence all by yourself. I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Are you ready to step out of your spreadsheet comfort zone? The next time you find yourself copying and pasting formulas across millions of rows, ask yourself, isn't it time I let the DAX engine do the heavy lifting? Open up Power BI Desktop, load in some data, and start practicing those DAX formulas today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.